Live from CBS North Carolina's Storm Team on assignment.
And good evening from the CBS North Carolina studios here in Raleigh. Thanks for joining us for this live weather special Storm Team on assignment, winter in central North Carolina. I'm Chief Meteorologist Wes Hohenstein. Bill Ray joins me in a minute. And over the next 30 minutes, our team of meteorologists is going to take you through everything you need to know about North Carolina winters. From driving on the roads, the difficulty of forecasting, and even severe weather, something not uncommon here during the winter months. We're also having a little fun. I'll take you behind the scenes on a recent trip I took out west, and meteorologist Kristen Ketchel shows us how some parts of our state have no choice but to keep snow on the ground for much of the winter months. But it's no secret this time of year can bring us just about anything. I mean, it was 50 today. 3 weeks ago, we had snow on the ground, and we spent several days below freezing. And 3 days ago, we were in the 70s. My colleague, Storm Team Meteorologist Bill Ray, is here with a look at what we've seen so far this winter.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy winter so far, Wes. Good evening, everybody. The big story was the January, I should say, 6 and 7 snowstorm. I mean, that is our one and only snowstorm so far. And what it did was it put anywhere from 1 inch to 8 inches of snow. But the biggest trick with this storm was the movement of the storm, because as it hit after the first weekend of the year, we were trying to dissect the storm into who would get snow and who might not get snow. And that ended up being the big news, because we knew there'd be a package of heavy snow. And it did occur as you look at the snow reports up north of I-85, but originally we thought it would be a little further south, but we started to see trends where the storm was bringing in warmer air, and that's the problem with the winter in North Carolina. You know, almost a foot of snow north of I-85, and then it dropped immediately to only 1 inch at the airport to basically nothing in Fayetteville. But boy, it did produce some sleet too, and that did kind of lock us down for a part of a week, right? We missed a lot of school. Now, this is a La Nina winter. Let me explain that for you really quick. It means colder than normal Pacific waters, and when they get colder, it shifts the jet stream around, and on average what happens is we have warmer and drier weather. But Wes mentioned, you know, we were in the 70s a couple days ago. We were pretty mild at times in December to start winter, but you can get changes in that. And what's happened a lot this winter is, I think the Arctic, some parts of the North Pole around Christmas are running 20 to 25 degrees warmer than normal. When you have that warm air up there, it can push some of that cold Arctic air to the south, and that's what happened the first weekend in January. And that can happen on those La Nina winters like we're experiencing now. So we had some cold air then. We're getting cold air now, and we might see some more coming up as we head through February. So that's the kind of winter we've been in, up and down and up and down. Now, the biggest, but it could have always been worse. You know, that Storm Team meteorologist Alyssa Corfont has a look back at some of the biggest snowfalls we've seen in our area.
Raleigh-Durham International Airport typically receives just under 6 inches of snow a year, and we know it doesn't take much to bring this area to a stop when wintry weather is in the forecast. Looking back, the top 5 snowfalls in Raleigh brought more than just everyday routines to a screeching halt, but widespread power outages and record amounts of snow.
Starting at the top of the list, January 25th, 2000. It's a storm that many remember clearly, as it set an all-time single-storm snow accumulation record at the Raleigh-Durham International Airport with 20.3 inches. It started snowing shortly after midnight on the 25th and continued for nearly the entire day. That particular January was an unusually active one, with 4 winter storms in just 2 weeks. Second on the list was from 1948, when 14.5 inches fell in Raleigh on February 10th. A late-season snowfall is third, where just over 11 inches of snow was recorded on March 2nd, 1980. Areas north and east of the Triangle were hit even harder. Parts of Nash, Halifax, and Northampton counties recorded between 22 and 27 inches of snow. Fourth is a winter storm that came shortly after the new year in 2002. Falling between January 2nd and 3rd, 10.8 inches of snow accumulated at the Raleigh-Durham International Airport.
Wrapping up our top 5 snowfalls in Raleigh, we have to look back to February 19th of 1979, where 10.4 inches of snow fell. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Alyssa. Now, statewide, we've seen some big ones, too. Let's take you back to February 1973. 44 years ago, the Great Southeast Snowstorm. Some coastal communities saw 1.5 feet of snowfall in 24 hours. That's a record to date for parts of our state. Snow drifts upwards of 6 feet occurred, $5 billion in property damage, and an estimated $500,000 in crop damage. Now let's fast forward, and I remember this one, 16 years. It was Christmas 1989. Here in Raleigh in the Triangle, we were wondering we were going to get a white Christmas. Where's the snow? It all fell to the south of us, along the coast. This is no joke. 15 inches of snow at Cape Hatteras, and a tanker actually ran aground near Corolla. And add to this, 60-mile-an-hour winds and 34-foot waves offshore. Unfortunately, 2 deaths were reported in Camden County. And a lot of you probably remember this one, not so much for the impact in our area, but the entire coast. Remember what we called the storm of the century, as it became known? The blizzard conditions that were in our mountains with 21-foot snow drifts. We only had an inch in Raleigh. Once again, that one missed us too, but the entire East Coast was paralyzed. Nearly half to 100 counties in our state were declared disaster areas to the west of us, and more than 250,000 people lost power statewide. And this one was also very costly and deadly. Now, we'll be taking a look back at some of the more recent ones, including, the infamous half-inch snow that paralyzed Raleigh in this special. So we'll talk about that. But as we know, it's not only just snow. It's usually dealing with some sort of mix. It's the freezing rain. It's the sleet that's all coming down. And that can create even a bigger issue. I don't care where you're from. You can't drive on ice. And we saw it across much of the central U.S. and the Midwest just a few weeks ago. These are pictures from that. The weekend storm impacting millions of Americans. Everything from slippery roads to power outages through Missouri, Oklahoma, and Kansas. And of course, those scenes, unfortunately, are not unusual here either. Wes?
Bill, if it was all rain, it would be an easier forecast. If it was all snow, it would be an easier forecast. But as you know, we always seem to be on that line. And we're familiar with what snow is, the white powdery stuff that we sometimes get school off for. And we know what rain is, but what happens when we're in between? The freezing rain is falling through the sky and then attaches to your mailbox, to your car, or to tree branches, and then it falls on power lines. The sleet, kind of the frozen pebbles that fall. And like I said, sometimes it is all snow, meaning the atmosphere is frozen from all the way at the top to the surface. And when it's rain, well, it's above freezing all the way at the top of the atmosphere to the surface. But sometimes in just 20 to 30 miles, you could have all 4 of our main winter precipitation types. Freezing rain, it falls through most of the atmosphere above freezing, then freezes when it hits the ground. And then the sleet, well, that eventually freezes as it starts to fall. And obviously the roads can become a big concern in these situations. CBS North Carolina traffic reporter Ali Rashowski reports on what it takes to prepare them and how DOT crews respond once the storm hits.
North Carolina has the second largest road system in the country, 80,000 miles to be exact.
If you're on a mile of I-40, it's just not 1 mile. You've got, if it's 4 lanes, you actually have 4 miles.
That means there are 6,000 lane miles for snowplows to clear in Wake County during a storm. The county is home to the most roads in the state, which keeps Highway Patrol's Troop C pretty busy during a winter weather event.
In one county, 15 or 20 calls in a day versus in a snow or ice condition, that might be in the couple hundred calls per day.
The last winter storm to hit the state the night of January 6th resulted in 1,650 crashes statewide and 3,617 calls for service to Highway Patrol. For Troop C, who handles Wake County, there were 486 crashes and 829 calls for help that January storm. So it all comes down to teamwork at the Emergency Operations Center in Raleigh when a storm strikes.
0390.
A crew of DOT workers monitors hundreds of traffic cameras placed statewide. They update the DOT website for residents to check road conditions and are in constant contact with road crews.
They're watching the cameras, they're working a lot of phones, tips come in, calls come in.
They say you can also be a team player by helping to reduce their number of calls. If you have to be out, allow for greater following distance and reduce speed during winter weather.
Just use good common sense in terms of driving on icy or snow-recovered roadway conditions.
Ali Warshawski, CBS, North Carolina.
Ah, common sense. Hey, who could forget this from a snowfall we had 3 years ago? Drivers forced to abandon their vehicles on Glenwood Avenue, stranded for hours, memes all over the internet, some cars left there for days. And the reality is we can't always avoid driving in winter weather, no matter how hard we might try. I got to brush up on my skills at the Bridgestone Winter Driving School in Steamboat Springs, Colorado.
2 inches of snow and ice did this to Triangle roads in early January.
But by that point, Steamboat Springs, Colorado already had 184 inches of snow, and they know how to handle it. So what better place to get some driving tips? Steamboat is home to the Bridgestone Winter Driving School. Morgan, one of their most experienced instructors. Morgan, thanks for helping us out. We sometimes have some issues with snow and ice in North Carolina. What would be the one thing you would have people take away from your experience?
Certainly there's no substitute for slowing down for the conditions. Being aware of your car's ability, particularly your tires' ability. Tires are still, in my opinion, the #1 safety feature on a car. We have all these modern things that are very obvious and visible, crumple zones, and cars have very obviously visibly gotten better. Tires at a molecular level have probably improved more than cars have over the years.
All right, you were talking about conditions. It's starting to get a little hairy outside. Let's go inside and do some driving.
Morgan Cavanaugh has more than 30 years of experience as an instructor, so he got behind the wheel first to show me what he could make a car do on snow. But in North Carolina, ice is usually our biggest problem.
So the sooner we can see the ice in the first place, the less we're going to have to react to it. So pick those, don't be a victim of low ice. Look ahead and find those ice spots sooner so you can slow down and make the plan for what to do.
After a few times around the track with the expert driving, it was my turn to take the wheel.
Okay, so you're sure I'm ready?
Absolutely, Wes.
Okay, so we're in a 4-wheel drive, but these rules are for any car, right?
No doubt. These habits we're going to teach, front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, very universal techniques we teach here at the school. Good for all vehicles.
I wasn't on the gas as much as my instructor, but I was still going faster than anything I would ever do on a snowy North Carolina road.
There's the corner up ahead, Wes. We're just going to make sure that we slow enough in a straight line, use the brakes. But now while you're braking straight, look at the corner. Release the brake and turn enough, no gas or brake.
Yep.
All to the steering wheel. Now as you unwind the wheel, now you can start feeding the power.
But what about the ice you can't see? What happens if you get out of control on that?
And there's some things we don't want to do that'll make that car not turning worse. If we keep turning more, it's going to make it worse. If we then go for the brake after we've turned more, that'll make that even more worse.
And we drove off to more snow after that, reminding us that we were on a closed course. And also, anyone can sign up to take a class at the driving school if you're ever out that way in Colorado. And while there's always usually enough snow at the resorts in the Rockies, sometimes Mother Nature doesn't play along here in North Carolina. Up next, we take you to some of the resorts you're more likely to visit, what they do to make sure you're able to ski even when it's warm out. And a little later, the other threat we face this time of year, severe weather. Bill Ray checks in with one of the hardest hit communities when tornadoes broke out last year. When Storm Team on Assignment continues.
Live from CBS North Carolina's Storm Team on Assignment.
And you are looking live from Beach Mountain Ski Resort. Obviously, the weather there is a little different than what we've had. That's a popular destination this time of year, whether there's snow on the ground or not. So what does that mean for business, and how do they keep things running when Mother Nature doesn't cooperate? We sent meteorologist Kristen Ketchel to find out.
When Mother Nature doesn't provide snow, ski resorts across the country turn to making their own in order to keep their slopes open.
Snowmaking is what caused there to be skiing in the south, pretty much.
Water and compressed air is all it takes to blanket the 15 trails on Beach Mountain with a fresh coating of snow. Water is pumped up the hill through a pipeline to any of the 158 snow guns placed around the mountain. And then
the air busts the water up in small particles, and then when it's below freezing, it turns into snow.
And the process has gotten much easier and faster over the years.
The equipment has changed. It's more efficient and makes more snow. And currently, we have a better pumping capacity for water. We can open up in a 24 to 36 hour period. Before it take 5 or 6 days to open up.
Machine-made snow also has its advantages.
Oh, it's great skiing, great snow. The biggest difference is the snow we make with the machines is a fine particle of ice, and it can either be wetter or drier. Snow that falls from the sky is a six-sided snowflake.
And some actually prefer the man-made snow to fresh powder.
The snow that falls from the sky, if it snows 10 or 12 inches, you will sink into it and ski. If we make 10 or 12 inches of snow, you pretty much ski on the top of it.
The ability to make snow means that southern states like North Carolina can still enjoy fun winter activities like skiing, snowboarding, and snow tubing, despite the fact that we typically experience mild winter temperatures.
But the real thing is usually better for business.
What we like for it to snow, what I call cosmetic snow. We like everything white, and I want to snow in Atlanta, Georgia, in Raleigh, North Carolina, and get people excited about coming to the mountains for skiing.
And even though we've had a warm January so far, the skiing forecast still looks good.
And right now, there's not a huge crowd here, but this is great ski weather.
I'm Storm Team meteorologist Kristen Ketchel, CBS North Carolina.
And with our recent cold outbreak, they're making snow this weekend right in the mountains. Now, as promised, to look back at some of those other memorable snowstorms. How about this one? Christmas 2010. Yes, the last time much of the Triangle officially had a white Christmas. You know, it started on Christmas night, but hey, that counts. Snow started falling late in the day, and boy, we woke up the next day on the 26th, very snow-packed. And a little more recent, February 2014, that was that storm. You know, the one that shut down Glenwood Avenue, forcing people to abandon their cars for days, up to 6 inches of snow in parts of the Triangle. And get this, 20 inches of snow recorded in Mount Airy, just typical across our state of what happens in the winter. But you know what? It's not just the snow and ice. More often than you think, we're forecasting severe weather in central North Carolina in the winter months. And just last year, tornadoes ripped through parts of our area in February in Granville County. They took a direct hit. Here's more. Last February's tornado outbreak in Granville County sure didn't look like a winter event, but tornadoes have occurred in central North Carolina in every month, including the winter months of December, January, and February.
We had been talking to my sister and my sister-in-law that the tornado was headed our way, and so I thought that was pretty unusual for that time of year, but it did hit, and it hit here hard, and it was the most devastating thing I've ever experienced.
Dudley Barnes still vividly remembers trying to keep his mother safe.
Just get into the bathroom and shut the door, and that's what she did. And she said time she got in and shut the door, she just heard like a boom, and she said it was gone. It came through that fast.
It doesn't matter if it's winter, tornadoes are devastating. This was the area where a house got leveled. As a matter of fact, you can still find pieces of the foundation.
When I got to this road, cars were backed up. And I looked and I saw somebody had turned over and guessed in a tornado because all the trees were down too. And I was sat there for a minute, and then I realized my house was there too.
The tornadoes last February 24th caused hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage and destroyed several homes. Richard McWilliams was lucky. He went to the store to get dog food and missed his house collapsing on him. So do winter tornadoes catch people off guard?
With advances of the wireless emergency alerts and other technologies to get tornado warnings, every person I talked to that was affected by that tornado, when I did the tornado survey, said they received the tornado warning prior to the storm hitting.
That can help explain why there were no deaths, and folks in Granville County will pay even more attention next time.
I'm not going to be so nonchalant about it, that's for sure. Just go over to Walmart. I'm going to come out and see where that sucker is.
On a global scale, 2016 was the warmest ever. If the planet continues to warm, will winter tornadoes become more likely?
Regardless of the long-term temperature trends, we have to deal with hazardous weather in the near term of our lives, and that includes snow, ice, flooding potential, severe thunderstorms, tornadoes. Those are all types of weather hazards that are possible in the wintertime, regardless of whether the temperature is running colder or warmer than normal.
And nearly a year after the winter tornado outbreak, people here have rebuilt and found a new sense of community.
We had over 100 people here one day working from local churches. That was in itself most amazing thing too. That was most amazing than the tornado to me, the people working together in our community.
Now, last February's tornado outbreak occurred after, remember, a warm December and most of January. February was cold, but toward the end of the month, when these tornadoes occurred, there was just enough warmth in the atmosphere to fuel the outbreak of the tornadoes. Wes?
All right, Bill, thank you very much. 2 miles above sea level, think about that. That's more than 10,000 feet. Temperatures dropping to 40 below zero. It's where scientists research snow, and I got a behind-the-scenes look. Up next, what they've discovered and how snow totals can be impacted by pollution when Storm Team on Assignment returns. Welcome back to Storm Team on Assignment. If you'll remember earlier this month, we were all reminded that snow is not easy to forecast. Recently, I got to visit a place closer to where the snow forms, more than 10,000 feet above sea level, to see what we could learn.
At the top of the Morningside ski lift in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, you may find some fresh powder. But you'll also find the Storm Peak Laboratory.
We're in the bottom of the jet stream, or what's called the free troposphere. So having a mountaintop observation station allows us to have a long-term record of different components of the atmosphere.
Since the 1980s, the Storm Peak Lab, which is owned by the Desert Research Institute, has been studying the atmosphere while being set up in the atmosphere. Ian McCubbin is the site manager.
We have this specially designed heated manifold that has a heated cap to prevent rime and ice from forming on the top, so we can measure all year long.
And a lot of times they need that manifold to be heated because it can get cold.
I'd say the cold is really tough. Negative 40, snow doesn't form anymore.
And you've been here for negative 40?
Yes.
Luckily, it wasn't that cold during our visit, but when it is warm enough to snow, they study a lot of it.
So the Storm Peak Lab is about 2 miles above sea level, and as you can see and imagine, the weather can get kind of interesting. In the winter, you need to either ski up or use a snowmobile, and in the summer, you need a four-wheel drive, but the research efforts are very worth it.
A long-term observation is critical for understanding our global atmosphere.
One of the more interesting things Ian and his team have discovered over the years has to do with pollution impacting snow formation.
When you have pollution aerosols interacting with the snowmaking process, you actually reduce the snowfall out of a particular storm compared to a less polluted air mass or a non-polluted air mass. So you're getting less snowflakes that are smaller with less water on them.
Pollution impacting snow totals isn't the only thing they've discovered. Look at this graph charting the amount of carbon dioxide from this station in the past 10 years. Even at 10,000 feet above sea level, one of the main greenhouse gases in our atmosphere, one of the main causes of global warming, is going up.
And that fact becomes even more relevant with the research that was released just last week. Remember, 2016, the warmest year on record since 1879. And it's not only 2016, but the last 3 years, 2014, 15, and 16, are the top 3 warmest. And again, these are the 10 hottest since 1879. A couple more facts about that. All 10 years happened since 1998. That's in the last 18 years. And for the triangle, we had the 3rd hottest on record. So that carbon dioxide that we saw being measured is one of the main contributors to global warming, greenhouse gases, and one of the main producers of those gases and carbon dioxide are humans. So it is us that will have to figure something out in the future to change these trends. Now, the research lab and driving school were just a few of the stops I made while at the Steamboat Weather Summit a few weeks ago. I also had the chance to try out some dog sledding, and you may be seeing that now on our TV because that is one of our most recent weather facts. We have a web exclusive for you right now on Wncn.com where you can see more from my trip, including me standing in waist-deep snow. Bill, we mentioned it earlier. They've had 184 inches of snow so far.
And doing that
We've had 2 to 6.
Yeah, and officially 1 at the airport. So.
Right.
What a difference. Now, we were talking about what's coming up. We mentioned earlier today that there is going to be a cold front tomorrow night. We finally got more cold air in here, but as you see on the Futurecast, as we look at on the Futurecast, there's going to be a little bit of rain, maybe a snowflake up there by South Hill, Virginia tomorrow night, but temperatures will stay above freezing at the ground, so everything's going to melt. So we got, the storm in January, then it got into the 70s. Now we got more cold air, but not much moisture with it. And now we'll just have to wait and see what February brings.
Right. The most important thing you can do to keep an eye on this storm and all the others coming our way, download our weather app where you can not only get weather alerts, but you can get hour-by-hour temperatures, which, when you roll over in the morning sometime is really important. Yeah. You can also get video forecast, and when it is safe to do so and when we have a winter weather system, it's a great way to share photos and videos for us. The most photos we get throughout the year are when snow falls, yes. And while we officially don't have any in the forecast, it could be right around the corner in February. And make sure to follow our storm team on social media. Bill, Alyssa, Kristen, and myself are all on Twitter and Facebook. And as we approach 7:30, that does it for us on Storm Team on Assignment. On behalf of the entire team here at CBS North Carolina, thanks for watching. Bill will be back tonight at 11, and I'll see you Monday night at 5, 6, and 11 right here on CBS North Carolina.